Hi, I'm Lauren, Managing Director at Stepwell Strategies and one of the lead project managers at our organization. In this module, Module 3 of the Learn As You Go grant writing course, we'll cover drafting a work plan. We'll use our example farmers, Thistle and Thorn at the Very Good Farm, to demonstrate typical work plan activities and common fundable opportunities for business growth. About halfway through the video, I'll share my screen and walk you through how to build a work plan in real time, so it may be helpful for you to download our fillable work plan template before we get started so you can easily follow along.
Our agenda in this video will build on Module 2 by expanding on the Very Good Farm's objective, mapping out a timeline and activities, and finally, identifying personnel and partners. We'll dive into drafting a work plan together, ensuring it aligns with grant opportunities, and talk about securing stakeholder sign-off.
This will all be done through the development of a work plan. Work plans are invaluable for framing projects and pinpointing specific funding needs for our budget. They tell you, the grant reviewers, and the program administrators specifically what needs to be completed to see a project to completion. It connects all the pieces of your grant proposal together and essentially develops an agreed-upon scope of work with your funding entity. Work plans are frequently required parts of the grant proposal included inside the application, but even when a work plan is not required by the grant, we recommend starting here anyway. To create a work plan, you will build on your objectives, which we talked about in Module 2, by breaking them down into actionable steps or activities. You'll think through what is needed to complete the project successfully, and for each objective, ask yourself, what needs to be done? What are the markers that indicate the action steps are meeting the objectives? This is often referred to as milestones. Who will do it? How will partners be involved? How much money is needed? What are the expected outcomes? As you develop your grant's activities, you will also want to cross-reference the RFA, RFP, or NOFO to ensure the activities you want to include are fundable. Most grants will explicitly list ineligible expenses, which will help you understand which types of activities are not allowed. It is best to go into the work plan creation process with a strong understanding of the grant program you are applying for and be well versed in what it wants to fund.
When thinking through your grant project activities, aka the actionable steps that will help you meet your objectives, it's really important to be mindful of the overall timeline. You want to create a timeline that's ambitious yet achievable. Most grant program timelines span 1 to 3 years, and reviewers really want to see proposals that have been well thought out and can be reasonably completed in the time span of the grant. So in creating your project timeline, you'll want to consider lead times for tasks like ordering equipment, hiring staff, planning, and potential construction delays. Remember, you can always finish a project ahead of schedule. It's better to overestimate how long something will take than underestimate or need to rush things at the end. It's also okay to drop a few activities if it doesn't seem feasible to complete them during their grant's required timeline.
The final thing I want to talk through before we get started drafting a sample work plan for the Very Good Farm is people, specifically the people you need to accomplish your goals for the grant project. A strong work plan will not only tell you what needs to be done and when, it will also help you identify the who and define roles for partners. Reviewers do not like to see grants where one farm owner or one person is doing all of the work. Strong grant proposals include key staff and relevant partners. These key people make your project more feasible, extend the impact of your work, and also integrate it into the broader food system. As you define staff roles, it can be really helpful to consider how much time a task will require and how much it will cost to pay someone to do that work. I frequently start roughing out a very early draft of my budget at the same time as my work plan. This helps me understand how much help and staff I can actually afford, or where I might need to adjust grant activities to best match the budget. As you'll learn, work plans and budgets are an iterative process where you go back and forth making sure the activities match the funding request and the funding request matches the activities. We'll cover the budget in more depth in the next module, Module 4. As you define key stakeholders for each project activity, you'll hopefully see a list of external partners beginning to take shape. The partners that are listed in your work plan are the first partners to reach out to surrounding letters of support or commitment. You'll want to identify what feels feasible to them and if they require funding to do their work. You'll also want to ensure any letters of support or commitment provided by them align directly with what your work plan says they will do.
Now, let's dive into the fun part, drafting your work plan. I'm going to open up a work plan that matches the fillable work plan template we've provided. You can simply watch me or have your own work plan open at the same time to follow along. One quick note, When you get started doing this for your own grant proposal, you will want to adjust the columns in this template we have here so they best fit the specific requirements of the grant you are applying for. For example, some grants will ask about milestones, like here, and some will not. Some grants will ask you to list key resources required to complete each activity or ask for a specific date of completion. Always double check that the grant guidelines to ensure you've captured all necessary details and communicated what you will be doing in the format that they have requested. Now, to jump into our work plan for the Very Good Farm, we are going to begin by transferring our objectives that we have developed in Module 2 into the spreadsheet. I've already done that here. I've got Objective 1 that we talked about, establish a blueberry aggregation network called the Very Good Farm Hub. And Objective 2, complete infrastructure upgrades and install individually quick frozen freezer in the pack shed. From here, I, as our farmer, Thorn, will start thinking through the activities that need to be completed to achieve each objective. So for our first objective, establish a blueberry aggregation network called the Very Good Farm Hub. That will look like establishing some sort of plan for aggregation. And we're going to add something about basing this plan on partner priorities, because we want to ensure that our aggregation plan actually best supports the farmers and buyers we're looking to accommodate. We can break this down a little bit further in the milestones and we will break down this a little bit further in the milestones and output section in a moment. So then after establishing our plan, we will likely want to prepare for and secure contracts with farmers and buyers. And then we'll need to acquire the tangible things that we need to best support this new plan for expanded aggregation. In this case, let's say that looks like acquiring a refrigerated truck and hiring a driver to pick up and drop off blueberries. From there, we'll be ready to launch. So for that, we're going to say launch and operate blueberry pickup and distribution. Again, we'll get into more detail in a moment, but for now, we're just outlining the broad activities that need to be done. You'll do this for each of your objectives, and as you can see, I've already filled in the potential activities for the Very Good Farm second objective, complete infrastructure upgrades and install individually quick frozen freezer in the pack shed. For that, I've listed things like upgrade storage facilities and cooler to support the expanded operation and ensure efficient handling of blueberries and other crops, install the actual IQF freezer, and upgrade our food safety compliance of the pack shed for aggregation purposes. After outlining the main activities as we've done here, you will move row by row through the spreadsheet, row by row, considering all of the other things we discussed earlier in the training. Things like who will do this work, responsible staff and partners, what will the major milestones or outputs be, will external partners be involved, and how long will it take to complete the task. We'll put that here by highlighting cells in the Gantt chart, plus any other things the grant specifically asks us to identify. For the sake of time, I've already filled this whole thing in, and you will have a sample of this as well in the materials. You can look through what a completed work plan looks like in detail. We're just going to take a moment to go column by column through one of the activities. So for Objective 1, Activity 1, I'll move from left to right, filling things in column by column. First, I consider the major milestones that will equate success for this activity. In other words, how I know the task has been completed. So, to plan for an aggregation network, I know I'll need to talk with farmers and buyers who have shared interest in this new farm hub. I'll choose a number that feels reasonable to interview. That'll give me a good sample and give me a lot of good background for planning. Here I say I'm going to interview 7 farmers and 3 buyers, and then state that I will use that information to compile an internal report of farmers and buyers' top storage, aggregation, and distribution priorities. Then I'll think about who can do this work. This is something that I, Thorne, the owner, operator, produce manager, with strong relationships with regional farmers and buyers, feels like I would be equipped to do. So I'm going to write him in as the reasonable staff person. In other cases, or for a bigger farming operation, there could be a whole staff person who already handles aggregation of products, and they would be the best person to identify to do this work. It could also be a newly hired staff person if the farm is in need of that level of support. Then I'm going to move to external partners, thinking through if anyone outside of my business might support the success of this activity. This activity in particular, establishing a plan for aggregation based on partner priorities, is a perfect place to involve external partners because we are developing the whole system and want it to best serve those involved outside of our farm. So here I've listed a couple of farms and a co-op that have already expressed interest in the project. ABC Blueberry Farm, Green Sky Blueberry Farm, and New City Co-op. Obviously, in this scenario, we said we'd interview more farmers and buyers than just these three, but that's okay. We don't actually need to identify all of the partners that are going to be involved in this activity, just a few representatives, specifically the ones who are the most likely to sign a letter of support or commitment. And you'll want to be sure that that letter that comes from ABC Blueberry Farm or Green Sky Blueberry Farm explicitly mentions the task that their name is assigned to in the work plan. So in this case, the letter for those farms should say something like, I commit to participating in farmer interviews to help Thorne and the Very Good Farm shape their aggregation system, standards, and agreements. I find the work plan to be an extremely useful tool for managing partner involvement in your project. If you think your work plan through thoroughly, you will wind up with a robust partner list right here in this column. It'll be everyone that you need to reach out to for a letter of support or commitment, and it'll even serve as the template for that letter because it'll list exactly what activities you want them to do. Next, we'll plot out activities on our timeline. We usually do this through a Gantt chart. We list out the entire grant timeline here at the top of the spreadsheet by quarter of the year. And then we color in the cell that corresponds with when the activity will take place. We find that a really effective way to get a bird's eye view on the whole project. So here we're showing a 3-year project that begins in Q4 of 2025 and ends in Q3 of 2028. Activity 1 of Objective 1 will be the very first activity we do since it's the planning activity. So we'll fill that square in right here. It'll be the first thing we do. And I know from personal experience that getting farmers to respond to emails and sit down for a conversation could take a few months to do. So I'm going to give myself a nice long amount of time to get this done. It's very likely this could be done in Q4 of 2025, but just to give ourselves a little assurance, I'm going to spill into Q1 of 2026, just in case it takes a little bit longer. Then I'm going to continue doing what we just did here for activity 1 for every single activity in the spreadsheet. So prepare for and secure contracts with farmers. I'll think through the milestones that'll show me that I've been successful in completing this activity. I'll think through who's going to do it, if any external partners are going to be involved, and then the timeline of when that's going to happen. You'll notice that some activities are going to overlap. For example, Thorne will be securing contracts here, while Thistle is purchasing a refrigerated truck and hiring and onboarding a driver. And that's also going to happen at the same time that Thorne is purchasing and installing equipment. That's totally okay. Some things will occur at the same time, and other things are going to be staggered. What's important is that you think through the timing of each step and when it needs to be completed so that another activity can begin. After everything is plotted out to the best of your knowledge, you're going to want to zoom back out and consider your project as a whole. Is one staff person assigned to too many parts of the project? Could additional stakeholders be engaged to have more robust partner participation? Did you underestimate how long something would take? Does the timeline feel ambitious yet achievable? In this example, as you zoom out, you'll notice that the last activity occurs right here in Q1 of 2027. That's about 18 months into the project. If this was a shorter style of grant that's expected to end in 18 months, 2 years, well, that's perfect. But if it's the USDA program that's expected to take 3 years, like we have listed here, well, then this project likely is not ambitious enough. You've got a whole year and a half that it wouldn't take that long to complete these activities. You really can complete them in 18 months. So for a 3-year project, you're going to want to think through a few more things because you definitely want to match the length of your project with the full grant timeline as best you can. That's how you know you're doing an ambitious enough project. So here, zooming out and looking at the big picture, shows us we have plenty of time to work in another objective, maybe two. So based on the priorities of the grant, that could look like getting the IQF blueberry line launched. Activities for that might include research and development, acquiring packaging, expanding farmer partnerships, finding new buyers interested in frozen berries, or you could focus on marketing for that third objective, perhaps developing a marketing plan that helps differentiate your regional blueberries and gain access to new markets for your farmers. Based on timing and who you are bringing to do the work, both objectives might be reasonable given your timeline.
Once you've filled out your work plan and ensured things feel ambitious yet achievable, you'll want to double check alignment with the grant priorities and your own priorities. As we said in the beginning, it's best to develop your work plan only after you have a firm understanding of the grant's goals and what's fundable and what's not. But even then, a double check is still a good idea. You'll want to go through carefully to ensure that all of your planned activities are eligible for funding under the grant's specific parameters. From there, it's good to also assess whether or not your activities align with your previously defined objectives and the priorities outlined in the NOFO. Again, this was always the goal of work plan development, but work plan development can also get off the rails as you get excited around certain activities and ideas. So it's good to check alignment again at the end of the process. Additionally, before you call your work plan complete, be sure to verify that these activities align with your overall organizational or business goals. You don't want an exciting, competitive grant proposal to shift the mission of your farm or business in a way you don't feel prepared for or doesn't feel in alignment with where you want to be going. By filtering your work plan through these lenses, you'll ensure overall alignment and avoid potential future challenges as you grow your farm or food business. And finally, the last and crucial step of finalizing your work plan is ensuring that all partners and key staff sign off on this work plan. This is your agreed upon scope of work. Don't sign anyone up for something they don't know about or haven't consented to. Similarly, ensure that partners are committed and understand their role in the project. We've covered a lot today. Basically, we mapped out our entire grant project. We've got a timeline filled with specific activities that link back to our objectives and align with our overall business mission. We identified who will do the work and listed measurable outcomes for each specific activity. We extrapolated everything into a Gantt chart that was appropriate for the predetermined timeline laid out in the grant guidance. Then we made sure to filter all activities through the eligible funding criteria of the grant and share the finalized work plan with all key stakeholders. What's next for our farmers at the Very Good Farm? Well, now that they have a detailed work plan outlining their goals and the necessary steps to achieve them, they need to create a budget to fund these activities. In the next module, we'll dive into the specifics of creating a budget to support these goals. This Module 3, Developing a Work Plan, is part of a larger series called the Learn As You Go Grant Writing Course, presented by the Regional Food Business Center in the Northwest and Rocky Mountain region. You can find all module videos, resources, templates, and more under the Learn As You Go Grant Writing course on the Regional Food Business Center's website. Thank you, and we look forward to following our farmer friends, Thistle and Thorn, from the Very Good Farm through the next set of grant application steps.